I'm here. Hello.
Oh, hello. Welcome to the pharmaceutical industry. Name?
I have arrived.
And can you say your name again, please?
I'm the future.
Once more. Is that with an F?
You've heard of the weekend? Well, I'm the future. I don't have as many cool songs, but I have a lot of cool stuff going on, like hover cars and people living on Mars.
Ah, so you do. Future. Ah, yes, there you are. I don't have you arriving for quite some time now.
Actually, I arrived yesterday.
Okay, well, we weren't expecting you, and nor are we prepared for your arrival.
Say what?
Yes, as I said before, not expecting you for some time. Sorry, have a nice day.
Wait, what? Have any of my associates arrived yet? Can you check?
Certainly.
Connectedness. Is connectedness here?
Let me check. That's connectedness with a K?
No, with a C.
Oh, okay, a C. Ah, here we are. Not here yet. Not expected for a while. Maybe 2025, 2026. Have a nice day.
Wait! What about technology? Is technology here? Try technology.
Technology. Ah, here we go. Technology has been here. Been here for a while. Seems like kind of a loner. No one wanted to engage. Too complex, I guess, for the common person. I think they were kind of afraid of technology, so no one bothers. Have a nice day.
Wait, can you connect me with technology?
No. We have regulations. Thank you.
What about customer centricity?
Customer centricity. Quite an exotic name. Is that hyphenated? Would that be customer or centricity or both?
Both.
Both. It's just not something we see every day. Let me check. Okay. Yep.
Customer centricity is here already?
No, I'm sorry. Nothing on the schedule for customer centricity for another 5 to 8 years. Sorry. Have a nice day.
Data. Wait, is data here?
Data? Oh my, yes. There's actually a shit ton of data here. if you pardon my French. Been here for some time. Seems like forever. Look around. Everywhere you look, data. Lingering, loitering, idling. Like it doesn't know what to do with itself. We would be happy if you engaged the data somehow and somehow made data useful.
I would be happy to. May I stay?
No. Sorry. We don't have you arriving until, well, I'm not really sure when you're supposed to arrive. Just not today, and definitely not yesterday.
This customer experience is there anyone else I can speak with?
I'm sorry, how did you describe your experience?
Suboptimal.
Suboptimal. Okay. Well, I do think there are some people that you could speak with. Let me see what I can do. Hold on, please. Okay, yes. I have some folks here that you can speak with. They seem to be experts in not only your customer experience, as you say, but also maybe they can deal with you in the future. Dan, would you join us? And Lauren, can you come down, please? And also Kevin, please, can you please come down too?
Very interesting. I'm so excited to meet you guys.
Well, what can you guys do about this situation with the future? Because it's quite frankly above my pay grade. Do you have any type of special skills or experience that would be appropriate? Why don't you introduce yourselves and we'll go on from there.
Yeah, I'm going to back off for a little bit and let you guys take the stage and fill me in. I'm excited to learn more.
So let's start with Dan. Dan, the first member of our panel. Dan is from A2 Biopharma. Talk to me, Dan. Who are you?
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Dan Landis. It's great to be here. I work for A2 Biopharma. I work as the Associate Director for Channel Strategy and Access Programs. Really, my role is finding ways to make our drugs available and affordable. I've worked in the healthcare space for a little bit over 15 years, first at the Children's Hospital, then with research at scientific technology publishing company called Elsevier. Also worked in the medical coding business and doing revenue cycle management and been in pharma for the past 4 years. So excited to be here.
Looks like she bailed out here, but can you help us with the future?
I can do my best. I can definitely. I'm not sure if I can solve all the problems, but I'm sure that I can help.
Okay, Lauren, how about you?
Sure. Good morning. I'm Lauren Murphy. I'm Director of Consumer Marketing at Biohaven Pharmaceuticals. I lead our consumer marketing for Nurtec ODT, which is our first drug that we launched as a biotech startup to treat and prevent migraine. I have been with Biohaven for about 2 years, and my role is really focused on partnering with my channel strategy team to bring the patient voice to the center of everything that we do. I have worked in pharma for almost 20 years now on both the agency side and the in-house client side, really focusing on disease education and patient empowerment. And I'm really excited to be here with you guys.
And I guess you can help us with the future as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Because apparently it arrived yesterday. Kevin Shea, not Kevin.
I can't fix my title in the thing, but we'll worry about that later. So my name is Kevin Shea. I'm the service lead for web and mobile at Genentech, Roche. What that means is I oversee about 80 brand and unbranded websites across the portfolio. I have over 20 years of online marketing experience. Most of it is outside of pharma. Only the most recent experience has been in pharma. And a lot of my background is around marketing technology and analytics and how to use that to disrupt the status quo to help transform organizations.
Well, ideally, you'll be able to help us with the future. For any of you that tuned in late or maybe thought that they tuned into a really, really awful Saturday Night Live skit, this is the 4th annual Panagora Pharma Customer Experience Technology Summit. We have been doing this for several years as an outgrowth of our larger customer experience event that is usually held in the spring, because there was the need to focus on how technology is intersecting and improving customer experience. So you're in the right place. You're at CX Tech. I am Seth Painter. We have 3 experts in patient-facing customer experience with which we are going to discuss. If you have any questions, you can submit them to us on the Q&A or the chat panel, which is located at the side of your screen. And we will go ahead and get started with Kevin. Kevin, what is patient experience as it pertains to technology?
So before I answer, let me put my disclaimer up. Thoughts and opinions are my own and not those of my employer, Genentech Roche. So what does patient experience mean as it pertains to technology? I think typically pharma is a little bit behind in the leverage of technology from other industries. So I would say from the future, in being working in other industries, I can see what's coming already. I think there's a lot of things like personalization and things like that, right, that are really help to service the user, right, and in terms of how you don't have to ask a lot of questions, right? You can infer a lot of information and get a lot of information from that. So I think it's really about understanding who the customer is and then applying what you know about them so you give them a better experience.
And how far behind do you think we are?
About probably 5 to 10 years.
That seems to be the estimate. 5 to 8 in common parlance. Lauren, do you have a disclaimer for us?
I don't. But you know, I've spoken with a lot of folks in my organization kind of about what we want to share as Biohaven here. But I think, you know, I agree with Kevin. It's pharma has been a step behind, and you know, we try to force fit things based on what is compliant with regulations. But we have so much data, and I think the key to the patient experience is taking the data, finding the insight, trying to personalize the experience as much as possible through custom content that you can scale up and scale down. So
I see. Now, Dan, we've been talking about data personalization. What are your thoughts? You work in a little bit of a different type of environment with your area of expertise, but as well as your, you know, the company structure as well. So what is patient experience as it pertains to technology?
Sure. So my disclaimer is that the thoughts and opinions that I'm sharing with you guys today are 100% my own and not my company's. Just want to make sure that that is perfectly clear.
You're on the record.
I definitely agree with both Kevin and Lauren in terms of us being behind pharmaceuticals specifically when it comes to adopting and embedding technology into the operations. Also agree as well with the fact that Lauren had mentioned data being extremely important when it comes to you know, really learning about patients, their experiences, what the journey looks like, and different ways that we can add value and we can help these patients throughout the journey. I would say that at least in the current state, you know, technology in my specific area is confusing for the patient. The systems are disparate, meaning it's very difficult to talk and coordinate with each other. It's in some ways overbearing, but in other ways it's underwhelming. So there's a lot of room for improvement. And there, you know, I think that the good news is that there are technologies that can be used to help throughout the patient journey. But I think in many instances, there's a disconnect, and you find sometimes technology vendors who do not have a good understanding of the patient journey tend to have solutions in search of problems rather than, you know, specific problems for the patient experience that technology can actually help.
So you can continue with this. My next question is piggybacking off what you said specifically, Dan, and touches on everything that Lauren and Kevin have mentioned. But what are some of the basic understandings that need to be in place before applying technology to the patient experience? Now, you mentioned, you know, solutions looking for problems, basic understandings of the patient journey, but what are some of the other more, you know, intangible things that need to be thought about, considered, woven into the fabric of any type of patient experience technology? Dan.
Yeah, so I think the main thing that I would like to convey in terms of basic understanding is this idea of trade-offs. And although we want to have the best of everything and the best, that one magic piece of technology that's going to solve everybody's problems, in many instances, there are some very basic trade-offs that need to be evaluated by the company before they make decisions around how they want to use the technology. You know, so just as a very basic example, the privacy and convenience trade-off. The portability of health information from the patient perspective As I mentioned, because of HIPAA, other laws and regulations, as well as the disparate, my lights just went out in my conference room, apologize about that. As well as all the disparate systems in the health system today, make it so that if we want to have more convenience, then we are going to have to trade off some of that privacy and vice versa. And so understanding, first of all, what those restrictions and what those requirements are in order to place the technology inside of an operation, extremely important, as well as, just other basic business trade-offs within the health industry, such as like the availability and affordability trade-off that we experience in channel access all the time.
Kevin, what do you think? What are some of the basic understandings that need to be in place before you start laying tech on stuff?
Yeah, I mean, privacy is definitely one thing that's getting bigger and bigger in terms of how it's being addressed from a technological. All the big tech companies are saying, I'm getting rid of cookies, right? So there's like, you have less of that, right, that you can see. But I would say beyond that, though, what I like to do is I like to look at things like user experience, like sitting in and watching how patients actually navigate things like the website or just their experience overall, and really getting a better understanding of their journey, right? Of why are they coming to different things like a website, or why they care about certain areas depending on where they are in the health continuum, right? Is really understanding that. And then the other part is we all have analytics, right? And looking at that data, because what the person says and what the patient says doesn't necessarily mean what they're actually doing. So when the patient says, I want blah, 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 and you start to do that, but then no one's using it, then there's potentially a disconnect there, right? Not to say that happens all the time, but sometimes it's beyond what the actual person says and actually what the underlying data tells you. So I think there's some really basic stuff there that most companies can do without adding a lot of new technology or anything like that. Just baseline stuff to look at and then make informed decisions off of that, and then build on top of that afterwards.
So you mentioned actually watching the UX. So step one is you make a technology and you just give it whatever UX you think, right, it should have. Next level would be, hey, let's do some user testing, send this over to people. But do you actually watch somebody, in a room, two-way mirror, watching them navigate this, or do you just kind of, connect the breadcrumbs, from their activity trail on a particular digital asset?
Yeah, I've actually seen both, right? So actually behind a two-way mirror and actually watching them as they're navigating on a mobile device, very, obviously, with their permission, obviously, right? But basically seeing how they interact and what they're thinking as they're kind of stepping through it. The other thing that's kind of a hotter term being used today is co-creation, right? Is being able to, what do you want? And then without showing them anything, right? And then saying, how would you create this experience better for yourself, right? So again, all of these things, there's trade-offs, but you're trying to aggregate all the information and triangulate what is it that the person's actually saying versus what they're actually doing. And then you can build the experience that you want after that.
Gotcha. Lauren, what type of underlying understandings, philosophies, and tangibles need to be in effect? Your line of work deals with migraine, right?
Yes.
So we have a situation where it manifests itself differently in every patient, and it's almost impossible to translate how one person feels about it to another.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for us, it's really important to understand where patients are going to get information and gain education, but also what kind of devices are they even using, right? And so, for us working in migraine, our patients are between 18 and 44. They're on their phones, they're not on their laptops, right? So we're designing a patient experience that's mobile friendly and mobile first, right? And then if you are working in a different disease area like stroke prevention and atrial fibrillation or type 2 diabetes, where there's an older patient population, they may not be as tech savvy on their phones. They may be more apt to use a laptop, and where you need to optimize your engagement for a desktop friendly site. So those are the things that we think about, like on like the basic level. But we're also looking at, what are their trusted sources of information, right? For my patients, they are on TikTok, right? So for other brands, it may not make sense to be on TikTok just to be on TikTok, but for us, it's a trusted source of information. And so how can we tap into that in a culturally relevant, meaningful way that doesn't feel like, very pharma, but it feels fun. So that's the approach that we have been taking for Nurtec.
And it's a sad state of affairs, right, that TikTok is considered a trusted source of information, right? But great to meet the patient where they are and, be able to communicate with them in a mode that they choose, versus some other type of mode. So we have sort of the understandings of what needs to be in place before we put the technology out there. Here's an opportunity for you guys to kind of name names or identify some of the technologies that you feel are making an impact. And again, as I mentioned, feel free to mention very specific partners, services, platforms, pieces of technology. I mean, Lauren just mentioned TikTok, but don't be afraid to put the feather in the cap of a company, product, service that you really like. But so Dan, what are some of the technologies that are making an impact in your purview?
Yeah, so in my role currently and also my previous spot, in many ways, I'm not always directly interfacing with the patient, but I'm more indirectly interfacing with them through some of the various stakeholders that we have in the channel supply chain. So for me, very basic stuff like APIs, being able to use API technology to get information in real time helps make decisions, can provide timely messages or call to actions based off of certain variables that we want to sort of use to basically have actions occur with these criteria being met. Other thing is with patient engagement and adherence and things like that, using this, basically using wearable information or sensor technology to be able to pull different types of data together and then leverage that data for improving the patient experience. One of the other areas is just the improvements in basic logistic regressional models or an understanding of machine learning, logistic regression, decision tree concepts that we can use to monitor certain patient programs, as well as to provide even something like economic savings or patient savings when specific things are being met. So those are the ways that those are some of the things that I'm using.
Any specific examples with the wearables? I thought we might have, we didn't even make it 26 minutes before somebody said wearables. So, with regards to the therapeutic areas or disease states that your company provides therapies for, any particular
My company personally right now is not actually leveraging a wearable technology. It's more around just the advancements that have taken place recently in the types of hardware, whether it's mobile, whether it's wearables, computer vision now, in some applications is better than professionals at, labeling and classification problems. Then you have things like, natural language processing and even like, just in many ways, computers are becoming much better at solving problems, and the hardware is becoming more affordable thanks to, the adoption of cloud services. So, that's kind of how I would characterize it.
I got you. That's a good perspective more from the operational side, which we don't ever consider because a lot of people think of a wearable, patient-centered, a patient-facing technology versus something like an API, which we didn't have 10 years ago, let's say, or machine learning and those types of analyses that we can do. So yeah, when you see the lights go off, that means your time's up. So you should wrap up your statement. Lauren, what technologies are making an impact?
Yeah, I mean, the lens that I look through, my work with patients is through how do we amplify our messaging in a meaningful moment for them, right? And so like one of the specific examples that I would think of would be, the partnerships that we have with different weather sites like AccuWeather and weather.com, where we can track barometric pressure, which is a migraine trigger, right? So you can target your messaging to areas of lower high barometric pressure, which is going to trigger a migraine in someone. So you're literally hitting them in the moment where they're looking for that information. And then for me, we are a social brand. We are social first. We are working with high profile social influencers. So working with partners like Twitter, and asking them to let us work with them with different products that they have that maybe Pharma hasn't used before, has been really meaningful. And they know their users so well. They know exactly what their users respond to. They know how to interact with the data, and they know how to help us create content that will perform in a customized way on their platform, right? So we're not force fitting existing content into our different platforms, but we're really partnering with our agencies and the different media platforms to put things out in the market that are going to be meaningful and not just kind of like Pharma splashing it out there.
And so you mentioned influencers as it pertains to social media, but I've seen that you've worked with a couple of different celebrities, correct?
Yes, we are working with Khloe Kardashian and Whoopi Goldberg and Tori Spelling and a couple others that these are people who live with migraine, and our product works for them. And so we are going to help them, talk to other patients about it and help spread the word in meaningful ways.
I don't know if I'd consider Whoopi Goldberg cutting edge technology, but it certainly makes sense. And having to watch my daughter, who's 11, be on the TikTok 24 hours a day, they're helping you shape content into that format and sort of the delivery method they want, because quite honest, most of the stuff I see her watching is inane. It's absolutely ridiculous. So how can you have a quality scientific exchange of information when I don't even know what she had me watching last night? So they're helping you with that, and you're being able to fit that into the rigorous regulatory structure of the pharma world.
Yeah, I mean, we partner with our medical legal regulatory team as strategic partners, and they help us kind of navigate that. And I'm not Khloe Kardashian. I'm not going to write an Instagram post for her, but she's going to tell us what she's feeling and what she's thinking, and we will make sure that it's compliant with all the regulations, but that it's a meaningful post for her followers. Her 187 million followers on Instagram.
I was just thinking more specifically of TikTok because it's mine for me. But get off my lawn, as they say. Kevin, what are some of the technologies that you're seeing making an impact in the patient experience?
You rarely hear the word APIs in some of these discussions, but I actually agree with APIs too. Not all vendors are created equal. Let me just put that out there, because like I said before, pharma's typically behind. So if you're talking about that type of technology, make sure you're selecting the right vendor there. Beyond that though, I think from where I sit, I think there's a couple of baseline things, right, that we can do, right? Even though my space is predominantly digital and websites and stuff like that, I think there's also a component offline, right, that you kind of have to kind of bring the whole picture together, right? So you can see the whole 360 view of the patient, if you will, right? So things like, voice of the customer. Sometimes you have a call center, or you have stuff that's online, or you have some other touch points, right, that are out there. I think you're able to kind of get a 360 view. That's typically how other industries do it, right? Where you're able to kind of see exactly what people are doing in different areas, right? And then leverage that data to kind of build that experience, right? So then you move into, with that information, can I personalize, right? What can I personalize? What is compliantly not creepy to personalize onto something, right? Whether it's an email or a website or whatever it is, right? So I think there's aspects of that, right? And most CMS tools, that people use, there's probably some level of component in there for personalization, right? If a lot of big pharma is on the Adobe stack, so a lot of Adobe tools, if you're not a Adobe fan, you're probably on Google, right? So all those things are already kind of built in, or more or less they have a tool in there, right, that allows you to do some of these things, right? And then I think the other thing that I think is missed, and it goes back to some of the privacy discussions, right, that we talked about earlier. Not a sexy topic, right, in this, but it is a concern for the patient, right? So you're talking about, all these things coming up on websites, right? That says agree or decline these cookies that are going to drop on your thing, right? So even finding a vendor there, right, to support that, because there's privacy laws right now that's in California, but there's other privacy laws coming out. And again, this is a topic that most marketers and most people in the space don't really want to discuss because it's not a sexy topic, right? But there is a concern from a patient perspective, right? So all these other laws coming from other states, it's going to affect how you operate and how you do things, right? So there's various tools out there to allow some of that. OneTrust is one that's pretty big out there. There's Insight, and there's other kind of vendors out there that allow and help you manage those type of privacy and consent.
Excellent. So we see some from Dan and Kevin looking more at the operational side from their side of the business. Lauren's company is in the middle of really patient-facing stuff in terms of social and digital. A lot of good examples there. So we talked about things that we like, but we're not the best at everything, right? So where in the patient experience continuum could technology be better leveraged? So whether that is at the beginning of a diagnosis, whether that's acquisition, whether that is information, adherence, compliance, whatever you think in terms of the patient experience, where can we improve? What could we do better? And how could technology help us do that better? Lauren, your thoughts?
Sorry, my dog had started barking. But the two areas that I would, that immediately come to mind are one, diagnosis, and the second is adherence to medication. And that's specifically for migraine. I think that with migraine, it can take years for someone to get an accurate diagnosis. And then, you see data that with new treatments like Nurtec and the other CGRPs, it can take up to 10 to 15 years for a new standard of care to be established, right? And how do we cut that down? How do we cut down the time to diagnosis, and how do we cut down the time to getting the right treatment, given the new science? But then also, patients get complacent. It can be hard to get back to the pharmacy to get a refill. You could have issues with your insurance. Your doctor could have issues with prior authorizations. So how do we, as a manufacturer, make that seamless for patients using technology, right? Is it through disease education programming that we do with advocacy partners? Is it through offering different, digital copay cards or prior authorization assistance? Those are the things that I think are gaps that we really need to work on closing.
Is that for the adherence piece of it as well?
Yep.
Okay. And I know that in your situation with migraine, you can have, there's sort of rescue medications, but then also medications that treat the underlying migraine condition. Do you run into patients that only want to use the rescue med and only occasionally use the chronic med, and sort of vice versa? I know that happens a lot in the asthma therapeutic area.
Yeah, patients have such a complicated, many patients have complicated treatment protocols. They have like a toolkit of different medicines that are rescue medicines, or that prevent, or that treat the symptoms like nausea. And so it can be overwhelming for them to figure out what they need to take and when. And so, we try to help help with that and make we treat the whole patient, not just the patient who needs a rescue medication or a preventive. So.
Gotcha. Dan, what can we do better?
VP of sales at my company always says that the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. And so always stuck with me. But definitely agree with Lauren in terms of the diagnosis and adherence piece. Two other areas that I would actually want to add to is really even identifying patients and the segmentation of those patients, especially when you get to like rare disease areas, just finding the right type of patients to be able to do the trials or even just to try the therapy. And then for myself personally, in the coordination of benefits and the access piece. So something as simple as price awareness for services, or how much something is going to cost, or what are the options for a patient when faced with a certain number of different paths they can choose of how they want to go down the patient journey. What are the economic considerations that come into play with each one of those paths? And really trying to minimize those economic the economic impact by reducing the cost overall is something that we're trying to do, but at the same time, it's still something that needs to be considered, and it's not something that is easily transparent for the patient when they're trying to make their decisions. So that's an area where I believe that technology has the ability to really step in and step up.
I mean, you would think that it would be pretty easy, because when you're trying to streamline all of those things, you're just working with data essentially and a little bit of user experience, but it is still very challenging for patients to engage with those processes, as you mentioned. So definitely room for improvement there. Kevin, what do you think we can do better as an industry in terms of customer
There's
experience?
a lot of things we can do. We can do a lot of things better, but that's going to be too much to boil the ocean in this conversation here. So one area I think that I saw, and this goes back to my point earlier, where what the patient says versus what we do as an industry, right? So I think one research note that I saw maybe a couple months ago was, okay, patients say I want to better understand access, I don't want to better understand adherence, right? So great. And then the industry goes and says, we spend $1 billion to get access solutions, and we get all these adherence programs, and then and the patient's like, I can't find it. I wish the pharma company would do more for this, right? So right there's already a disconnect between the billions of dollars, right, being spent in the industry to tell patients, we have these financial options for you, and we also have these adherence programs for you, yet the patient themselves can't even find it or aren't able to decipher what it is, right? So I think right there's a big disconnect, right? So how can I mean, if you were like outside of pharma and you're like, my customers can't find our product and don't know how to use our product, that's like the big red flag, right? So I think there's some basic things here that maybe it goes back to, how's the patient finding this stuff, right? Maybe there's a disconnect there, right, between how the industry is doing it versus how the patient actually is leveraging the thing, right? And we talked about TikTok a little bit earlier, right? Even though that's maybe the right customer for Lauren's group, like if I went to go to TikTok with my product, it's probably not going to work, right? Because that's not the right place. Just because I heard her say it doesn't mean that I should be doing that, right? I should understand my own customer, my own patients, of what they're doing, right, and apply that. Then if I was on Facebook and it went down, I have a problem, right? Because if all my customers can't access Facebook like we did earlier this week, then you have to kind of figure out what other game plan is there besides that, right? There has to be other areas beyond just these singular channel things, because they do other things, right? And it becomes how well do you know your customers, right? Are they younger? Are they older? Are you in a rare disease? Are you in a mass market? There's a lot of data there that you can sift through. And part of it also is doing some trial and error, right? Because that's exactly how we do it outside of the pharma industry. We try some stuff, doesn't work. It's okay. We learn, we don't do that, we just try another thing, right? Or have several things out there if you're sophisticated enough, right? To say we're testing these things all at the same time. Whoever is the winner, and whoever is the losers are the losers, right? And not looking at what you think is the answer, right? It's basically what the data tells you is the answer at the end of the day, and do more of that.
So I'm going to rapid fire here because we only have about 2 minutes left. Piggyback on what you just said, Dan, what's one measure of PX success? What's one measure of that you know that you're doing patient experience right?
I think adherence is definitely something that is what a lot of pharma companies use.
Adherence. Lauren, what's a measure of PX success?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's market share and it's also adherence. It's your patients keep coming back to you, but it's also, you know, the sales data too. You know that things are working, and you know that your message is being heard by your customer.
And I know Kevin's going to say clicks and time on site, so we don't have to ask him. But now, Kevin, what comes to mind when you think of good PX? How do you measure that?
Yeah, besides clicks on time on site, I would say potentially voice of the customer scores, for example, if you're able to see customer effort score or NPS scores, that type of stuff.
Gotcha. So there are ways of quantifying this in metrics that we can look at and say, hey, we did a good job. And we did do a good job today with our first panel here in the CX Tech 4th edition Panagora